not sure who's here at the moment, but we've gone live right now with another session. And um, thank you for everyone that's tuned in the past. I can promise that this session is going to be very different. Um, so far we've been talking about the topic of mental health. The first thing that we did in the first video was we established what mental health is, and then we also looked at different types of mental health. So we looked at anxiety, we looked at depression, and we looked at also from the aspect of the Bible, we looked at the topic of King Saul and David, how King Saul was um, constantly trying to kill David, who was his son-in-law, which is obviously a very, very um, nerve-wracking situation. And then afterwards, we moved on to multiple topics where we looked at the specific story of Obadiah in the Bible and how Jezebel was looking to kill all of the different prophets at that time who were more or less acting in contention against what she wanted to do. And for those who don't know, Queen Jezebel was King Ahab's wife. And in that particular segment that we looked at, which is our volume two, which we looked at just a couple of weeks ago, we looked specifically at um, various different things. So we looked at, just going through it quickly. We looked at different things like loneliness. We looked at purpose in general, as well as also looking at paranoia, and also looking at self-esteem too. And then we linked it back to the experience of Chadwick Boseman, who, for those of you who don't know, he was the person that famously played Black Panther in the 2018 film that made quite a lot of money, as well as him portraying many other characters. And um, right now we're going to be looking at finance. So you're probably thinking to yourself, first question is, what has finance got to do with mental health? Well, believe it or not, the two are quite closely connected, especially when we look at this time that we're living in with coronavirus. You see the fact that, finance is something that's quite key, it is very important. And this one is going to be, so for all of the rest, quick spoiler, for all of the rest, I've had a script. For this one, I'm not really following a script because this is actually my profession. Um, I have more of a hands-on experience with it. It seems that I've been an accountant for what is going on as 6 years, heading to 7 years. Before we really begin, before we really get into it, let's just have a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, I'd like to thank you for giving us this day. Thank you, Lord, for blessing us with yet another Sabbath day. Lord, unfortunately, this week hasn't really been the best in terms of this country and being in the UK, in terms of the fact that now we've officially been told that a second wave of coronavirus is upon us. But Lord, you've given us this opportunity to be blessed with yet another Sabbath day, to just put aside all of those worries, put aside all of those cares that we have to deal with in the day-to-day week. And I'm praying, Lord, that you will speak through me in a magnificent way. Yes, Lord, I've already said that this has been my career for 6 years, but I know, Lord, the words that you have to speak through me will be ones that really reach the hearts and the minds of those that are listening. So I pray that, Lord, you will really bless us to be able to hear and to be receptive to the words I'm going to say today, Lord. And for me, even myself, to be receptive also, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray all these things. Amen. So the first thing I'm going to do before I actually really go into things is I'm going to look at it from the viewpoint of the Bible. So if we look at it from the viewpoint of the Bible, there are two texts that come to mind. The first is Luke chapter 14, verse 28 to 30. And I'm going to be reading specifically from the King James Version. So it's Luke chapter 14, verse 28 to 30. And I'm just going to read it for you just now. And the text says the following. It says, "For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it? Lest happily, after he hath laid the foundation and is not able to finish it, all that behold, behold it begin to mock him, saying, This man began to build and was not able to finish." And the second text can be found in Proverbs chapter 21, verse 5. It's Proverbs chapter 21, verse 5. And I'm also reading that from the King James Version. It says this. It says, "The thoughts of the diligent tend only to plenteousness, but of everyone that is hasty only to want." Now, this is a really interesting text because of the fact that well, both these texts are really interesting, and the reason why both of these texts are really interesting, in my humble opinion, is because They really help you to realize that finance is not really something that should be done in a very ad hoc manner. It's something that needs to be really thought about. It's something that you can't just jump up and say, "Oh, okay, you know what? I'm going to spend, I'm going to spend X money. I'm going to spend Y amount here, etc." It's something that you yourself have to really, um, best what I could say is budget for. So for those of you who are not really familiar with the term budget, so whenever you're, I'll bring it to a business setting. Whenever you're looking to, as a department, so say we're going to look at, let's say, a marketing department. A marketing department is looking to, bring up a new campaign, and as a result of them looking to bring up this new campaign, they say to themselves, okay, we want to spend um, we want to spend £5,000 on this particular advertisement. And because we want to spend £5,000 on this particular advertisement, we now have to, we have to really tighten our belts. Say it's a really small company, we have to really tighten our belts in order to push through this campaign. Now, the first thing that they have to ask themselves is, do they even have £5,000? If you don't have £5,000, there's no point in you putting yourself in a situation where you're literally borrowing the money to go against it. Because what you need to think of is you need to think of an income and an expenditure. If whatever you're putting in, you're not going to get more back from, there's no point in you doing that. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to make a profit from it. But let me just bring this home to a different situation. If we look at the situation of, let's say, a university student, I'm sure everyone, or for anyone that hasn't been to university, it's a great experience, and I strongly recommend it. But for those of you who have been to university, you can probably have the same sentiments as me, as being as somebody that when you actually enter that, I guess say the plane of university, you think to yourselves, oh my days, I have so much money at my disposal. Four figures of money at my disposal. I've never seen so much money in my life. You think to yourself, oh, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy that, I'm going to buy that. And sooner or later, once you've exhausted all of your money, do you even have anything left for your food, let alone the clothes on your back, for you to be able to even attend your lectures? And one thing that's really interesting is that what I've realized is quite a lot of time, not even just students, but people in general in life, they don't really seem to understand the fact that yes, you do need to, spend money on different things, but sometimes you have to really think to yourself, can I go just maybe a couple of weeks without that particular item? Maybe can I go a couple of months without a particular item? Because um children of God, we have to realize that we are actually stewards. Everything that we have is not of our own. Even our own body is not of our own. Even our very breath within our body is not of our own. And for that reason, we need to really systematically think to ourselves, is this what God wants us to do with this money? And it's something that's it's quite a challenging thing to really think about. And even when I think about my particular life, for example, from a very, very young age, I would say probably from when I was around 12 years old, a lot of my best friends would even say I was that person that was the number one number cruncher. It didn't matter what it was. It was a case where I was constantly systematically just breaking down figures there and there out. And that ultimately led me to basically go into the profession that I am today, which is that of being an accountant. And even when I think about the fact that something as simple as me saving up for Nintendo Wii, which costs something like £250, I systematically said to myself, listen, Keith, you get £10 a week. And because you get that £10 a week, you need to now set aside that £10 a week, build it up so that you can buy that Nintendo Wii, so you can buy games and etc. And I've developed that mindset over the years to the point that now I'm a family man. I have to sometimes think to myself, as most people do have to think to themselves, is okay, I've got X amount of money coming into my account for my salary, but I know that I have needs here and there. I have to think to myself, what will the Lord have of me? If it's a case where I'm buying all these different tracksuits and everything, and my own children are not even having anything to eat, and my priorities really in the right place, you really have to think to yourselves, what is the best way to really go about doing things? And that is a simple reason for actually creating a budget. A budget is simply more or less, I guess you could say, a future prediction of what your income is and what your expenses are. And from you looking at that, then you can say to yourself, I can now see clearly what I want to do in the future. So another instance I can even give for a budget is wedding. Many people, get married. And when you get married, obviously, you have to really think to yourself, how much is the overall wedding going to cost? Not to say that it means that you're going to delay things, but it means that, as a result of you being able to go into a wedding, you have to think about all the different logistics of things. Now, I myself have married, and I've been married for 2 different years, for more than 2 years. And before I got into before I even got into the planning of getting married, my then fiance, now wife, I didn't really think too much about it. And then when I really actually looked at the budget, there were a lot of things I didn't really look into. So, for example, aside from the very clothes, the US, maybe the tuxedo, the wedding dress, etc., you have to think down to, the wedding favors that you're looking to buy. You have to look at, the shoes the clothes you're looking to buy, the decorations, the food, the entertainment, the videography, the photography. All of these different aspects make up the entire budget, and you have to think to yourselves, is it a case where I'm going to have to take out a loan to be able to cover this? Am I going to be able to, save enough for enough time? Or is it a case where maybe I have to push the wedding just a little bit further away so that, maybe I don't actually think of taking out a loan. I just use my own income or use my own savings to be able to clear the specific amount for the actual, wedding that I'm going to do. And it's something that's really important in life because even as we saw in that text in Luke, it even says simply, even if you're, let's look at the most simplest of things. If you're looking to build a house, you can't just literally just get up and say, I'm going to build a house. Because if you think about it, building a house is something you have to really think about on a very, very structured, in this very structured way. You have to think about the foundation. You have to think about the bricks. You have to think about the type of brick you're going to use. You have to think about the paint you're going to use. You have to think about, the plumbing system. Think about every single aspect. And we as, Christians and we as people, serve a God of order. And because we serve a God of order, we have to really think about the way that we're actually going about doing different things. So when you actually think about finance, you have to think about that aspect. And many a time, we actually get ourselves into a what I would call a financial headache because of the fact that we don't really think too much about the money that we're spending here and there. We always think to ourselves, okay, you know what, I'm earning money, so because I earn money, I need to look good. I need to, I need to dress good. Yes, that is important, but at the same time, we do also need to think about the fact that if we, if we have all of this money that we required, and at the end of the month we have nothing to even put aside, that we're really actually spending money in a very, very, smart way. And yes, it is quite simple for me to say because at the end of the day, I don't know what every single person's situation is. But what I can gladly say is that through through budgeting things very carefully and really looking at where you can tighten up your belt in terms of things. So maybe I don't know, you can not get that Ben and Jerry's ice cream over there. Maybe you can not get that pack of cookies over there. Maybe you can not get those pack of Christy you like. By you really tightening your belt, you're really able to actually hone in and say, listen, I'm gonna cut my expenses here so that my expense can be moved over here, or maybe a case where I'm going to cut the expense altogether, and for that reason, I'm going to be able to save money that I can now use for another month, or I can use in another, I don't know, 5 months, and etc. And through you really actually taking upon yourself all of these different, methods of thinking, you can really actually help yourself. And even I like what the text in Proverbs 21 verse 5 says. It says, "The thoughts of the diligent tend only to plenteousness, but of everyone that is hasty only to want." Generally as human beings we're quite hasty to want to get things. So like for example, we're probably aware of the fact that the PlayStation 5 is coming out quite soon. And many of us, we think to ourselves, yes, new console. We think to ourselves, yes, we need to get it. But the first thing that we should do is not think to ourselves, let's just go and get, the PS5, or let's just go and get the latest Xbox. Or, I don't know, bring it down to a woman. Let's just go and get the latest line of clothing or the latest makeup, etc. First thing we need to think to ourselves is let's budget. By us thinking to ourselves, let's budget, as the text says, once you're somebody that's really diligent, you're very, very careful in the way that you think, you'll be able to realize that you can actually have plenty of money at your disposal. And after all, yes, God is the person that blesses us with the different things we have, such as money. But if we use it in a very wasteful way, who's to say God is going to continue to bless you in that certain way? Because at the end of the day, if if the money is what you call it, your downfall, God is not going to continue blessing you with it because He doesn't want to see you in a position of hardship. He doesn't want to see you in a financial hardship. And the reason why I thought this is really important, linking it back to mental health, because it seems like I'm kind of moving away from it, is because I relayed a particular experience that I had in the first video that I did, which is that there was an unfortunate period of time where I found myself for an entire year literally looking for solid work. And during that time, I literally had to really think to myself, okay, Kingsley, right now you're in a very, very difficult situation. You have, yourself to provide for. You have your wife to provide for. You have your daughter to provide for, and you have your soon coming son to provide for. You have to really think to yourself, okay, listen, I have so many expenses here and there, and I really need to think to myself, what is the best way of me being able to, accommodate all of these different expenses, especially since I'm not earning a regular salary on a month to month basis. And as a result of me really thinking about things, what I decided to do from probably the time when I even started working. Is I make a spreadsheet, and in the spreadsheet, the first thing I put in is the income I make, and after I put the income in, I put all the expense and everything. And as each day goes by, I literally update the figure that is in my bank balance. And for that reason, I'm always constantly confidently able to say to somebody, if I need to, pay a bill or something, I'm able to say, don't worry, I can clear that. I can clear that. And the thing is, it gives you not just the mind of clarity, but it helps you to be able to realize that when you're somebody that really is thorough and you really plan your finances, it shows that it gives you just a giant relief. It means that gets you to a point that if something unfamiliar comes in your bank account, you think to yourself, "Whoa, I don't remember that £10 going out. What's this £10 for?" And then when you look, you think to yourself, "No, this £10 is unaccounted for." And because this £10 is unaccounted for, I don't understand where it's come from. And for that reason, you can question things. But one thing you also have to really count upon is, somebody that's quite wise in terms of finances. Because I know from experience, a lot of people aren't really, number people. But one thing I would confidently say is that the skill of bookkeeping, the skill of accounting is something that every single person should be able to know for themselves. Because if you are somebody that's not able to keep your own, so to say, house in order or your own finances in order, it really says a lot about you as a person. Because it means that, it, uh, it means that you always worry generally about everything. And as you already know, you ending up worrying about everything, it doesn't affect you very well in terms of your health. It can make you, it can make your hair start to go grey. It can make you, have problems with your digestive system. It can make you have problems with your mental system. It can make you just worry in general. And after all, we serve a God that is literally said in Matthew 6:33. If you seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, all these things should be added unto you. And even if you look early on, it says that, God has clothed the lilies of the field. He's taking care of all these different things. So if he's taking care of all these different things, why will he not be able to take care of you? And right there, we see in the Bible, it says that if you are somebody who's very diligent in the way that you think, you will always be plenty. You always have plenty of money at your disposal, or you always be, in a plenteousness situation in the sense that you have food on the table, you're able to clear the bills, you have money left over, you're able to provide all of the different needs that you want. Notice that I didn't say wants, I said all of the different needs that you want. Because once you've cleared all of the needs that you want, then you can focus on your wants. And another thing that I want to really bring to our attention is the fact that quite a lot as people in general, I find that it's very difficult for us to, really sometimes think about the future because at the end of the day, the future is something that is quite ambiguous. It's always changing. It's never going to stay the same. And especially in this time of coronavirus, you need to be somebody that's a really careful planner. Because when you are somebody that's a really careful planner, it stops you from worrying about everything. Even when I think about the unfortunate experience I had of unemployment during that 1 year or so, it's given me so much clarity to the point that now that we're in the situation of coronavirus, I'm not even worried about it. It doesn't matter to me because God has literally prepared me for the experience to say, listen, even if God forbid I was to lose my role today, it's a case where I know that because I've gone through all those different experiences, I can gladly say to myself, listen, you're able to overcome whatever it is that is going to come. And because you're able to overcome it, you can confidently go through it. But for anyone that does actually find themselves in an unfortunate situation where this, pandemic has affected them, whether it be with their employment or their financing, etc., I would say the one thing you should really do is really, as well, obviously aside from praying to God and open up the Word to find the answers, you need to sit down and think to yourself, what is my income, what are my expenses, and put together a budget because I can promise you for a fact I've put together budgets, I've put together you know um, income and expenses and etc. I've made the very stuff I've actually learned in my workplace practical to myself, and I can assure you it's caused me so much what do you call it actually so much relief. It's caused what do you call it? It's caused me to not really suffer any stress whatsoever because by me actually not really thinking about that too much, it means that ultimately, I'm able to, to just go on through my day as I would any other day. So, just a couple of final thoughts because of the fact that, what do you call it, time is kind of running along. First thing I'll say to you is think. The reason why I say think is because you have to think. Is whatever you're trying to get something that you would actually need at that moment in time? If it is, then get it. Or if it's at a bargain, definitely get it. But if it's something that you know will cause you hardship in the future, maybe you have to really actually think to yourself, is it really worth it to get this? Because if I think about it, if I get it now, am I even going to be able to have this in the future? Second thing is budget. Budget. When I say budget, I mean budget properly. If you know for a fact that you get this much money in a month, put that down. Don't try to round it to a very very high figure that you know that you definitely won't be able to get, because you need to be realistic. You need to be realistic with yourself. The third thing I would say to yourself is plan for the future, especially in this time of coronavirus. Everything is so, I guess you could say, wish washy in the sense of the word. The fact that one day, Boris Johnson can say, we don't have to worry about coronavirus. And then next day he can say, sorry guys, the second wave is upon us. It just simply means that life is unpredictable. And if life is unpredictable, it means that we need to start being people that are actually predictable. We need to have a plan within ourselves. Now, yes, of course, all plans in general will sometimes change from every now and then. But the very very important thing you need to do is, when you have a plan, if you stick to it, despite what happens in life, it means that you'll never have to worry about anything. And I'm just gonna read the comment that my good cousin he said you always wait a couple weeks time and ask yourself if you actually want it, which is a very good practice to do, because you have to really think to yourself, is whatever you're getting necessary at that time? If it's not, leave it. If it is, then get it, because you have to think to yourself, your priorities will change depending on your situation. It will change depending on the time of the situation. So, say for example, I'm a family man. I can't literally say to myself and get up and say, I'm going to spend £500 on this, because by me saying that to myself, I'm being selfish. I'm not thinking about I'm not just thinking about not just my family's well-being, but I'm thinking about not just thinking about the future in general. And that's why I would say we need to tailor your budget to your situation. I wouldn't say that somebody who has barely any expenses should be spending the same amount of money as somebody that's a family person. Everybody's situation is different. Because everybody's situation is different, you really need to think to yourself, can I go without this, or can I go with this? And the final thought I want to leave you all with is a text that I find is very encouraging, and it's something that I would regard as my favorite text of the Bible. And that's found in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 to 6. It's Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 to 6. And it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not upon your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all your ways, and he shall direct your path. And I can assure you, if you follow these two verses in the Bible, there is no way that you will not be able to succeed in all that you do. That's what I have to say today. But without any further ado, I'm just going to bring things to a close with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, you've given us many principles to really delve into, really given us many principles to really chew into. And for that reason, we're really thankful for the fact that you've given us these inspiring words through the wisest person who ever lived, in Solomon, and also through the Apostle Luke. And I'm praying, Lord, that you will help us, so that whenever it is that we find ourselves in a situation, especially when it comes to our finances, we really plan. Whether it be if we're going to university, whether maybe us joining the workforce, whether maybe us being a family person, even if we're just a general young person, let us just think to ourselves, can we go without maybe, I don't know, that material thing, or can we go without maybe that thing that we generally need? Because at the end of the day, Lord, you've made us stewards, and because you've made us stewards, it means we are accountable for the very things that you've given to us. Money being one of many things, as well as time. And you have said that you will see how we use these different things that we do. And even as you've even taught in this parable of the talents, you've given us a set amount of things, and it's our actual it's rather the impetus upon us to be able to make sure that we use those things to glorify you. So if we're not glorifying you with the money that we have, then it's a case where we really need to really reevaluate what we are doing in our life. I'm praying for, in a special way, Lord, upon not just this country, but just the entire world. Even as we're living in very unpredictable times with coronavirus constantly upon us. Just yesterday alone, we received the news from the Prime Minister Boris Johnson that the second wave of coronavirus is upon us. And for those that weren't really aware of what happened in the first wave, this is a really daunting thing for us, Lord. But I'm praying, Lord, that you'll help us to really tighten our belts, to really budget, to really think, to really plan everything that we do. Lord, I'm praying that you will commit every single act and every single thing that we do, because you have said that, and you've shown countless times in your word that your word is true and that is unfailing in everything that we do. And so, Lord, I'm just speaking life into anybody's situation. Right now, there are people that I'm even unaware of that are struggling, not just to get jobs, but just struggling in their particular workplaces, because maybe they found out that redundancy is just a heartbeat away. But Lord, you show me through my experience that it doesn't matter what you've gone through in the past, as long as well, it doesn't matter what you think you're going to go through in the future. You've carried us a long way. You've brought us a long way. And for you bring us through that, through that long way, you'll be able to keep us through that entire experience. You even said in your word that you never tempt us with more than we can bear, and we do really take consolation there. And for that reason, Lord, I'm asking for you to really help us, so that when we find ourselves in these situations of despondency, we really cling and hold on to you, Lord, and pray that you will be able to guide us in all that we do. All these things I have prayed, Lord, in your Son Jesus Christ, most precious and holy name. Amen. Before I really wrap up things, last thing I want to do is we are going through an entire series of mental health. So I really encourage you to watch the first two videos, because what we're going to do is at the end of it all, we're going to have a panel. And when I say this is going to be a panel, this is going to be a panel like no other. You've seen probably many panels on Zoom, etc. But I can assure you, the people that I'm going to put together are not just specialists within their field, but they're really going to make you think so much about your mental health on a different level. I myself don't really consider myself somebody that really suffers from mental health, but even I'm probably going to be challenged to another degree about what to think. So I'm really hoping that you'll tune in for the next 2 weeks and the following 2 weeks afterwards, because we're really going to chew and go deep into the topic of mental health, to the point that you're probably going to even think to yourself, "Wow, I really didn't think to myself. This is really how, what do you call it? How much God thinks of me." We're going to look at things from the Bible perspective. We're going to look at things from an educational, psychological perspective. We're going to look at things from a life perspective. That's the reason why I'm sharing my life experience with you. I'm not trying to make this a mundane thing. I'm trying to make this real. The experiences that we go through are real, and it's something that we're really going to share. So I'm really encouraging you to all just jot any questions that you have down from any of these videos. And when it comes to the time that we're really going to have this podcast, we're going to have this panel, I want you to ask all of your questions. I want you to fire out all your questions, because trust me, they're going to be answered. And the way they're going to be answered, you're not even going to believe the answer, because you're just going to think to yourself, "Why was I worrying about all this all along?" Because at the end of the day, the Bible just clearly says all the things in it. And as you don't know, the Bible literally stands for me as basic instructions before leaving Earth. That's what I have to say today, and I hope you're blessed. Happy Sabbath.